between the surgery and whatnot. But yeah, it was a bear of a week, but it's what it is.
Yes. Well, Jeff, man, I'm so grateful that you were able to join us here and we were able to connect. So, for those of you guys that don't know Jeff, right, he is currently the director of dispositions over at Tricon Homes. He oversees the strategic sales and management of the residential assets at this point in time. So he has extensive experience on this REO residential property disposition side of things, as a lot of us do as well, right? Like a lot of us have grown up in this industry and stuff together. And so, Jeff, just to start with, for some of those that don't know you personally, that may not have worked with you personally, like give everybody a little bit more detailed background. Like, how'd you find this niche? Like, tell us a little bit about your journey, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Graduated college here in Texas in December of 2006. Started off being a loan officer, trying to do VA loans on subprime clients, which did not turn out to be very fruitful. But I was still bartending at the time, and a lot of the local regulars there were on the Chase default side, senior level executives, the Jim Millers, the Mike Pieces, Bob Warrens. So I got to know those guys very well. One of their sons was actually in my wedding. So they got me, told me about REO and said, hey, there's about to be a problem. And, that would be where we recommend you go. That would be pretty beneficial. So started off there in February of 2008, worked there immediately in the REO department, spent a few years there, and then followed a boss, Scott French, over to Capital One. And we did broker direct there before it was working through asset management companies, which I wanted to get the direct experience working with agents, which is my passion, right? Like you guys and I are partners in this. I can't do my job without you for sure. So I worked the Southern California jumbo loan portfolio, which is exciting, huge houses. The largest house I ever sold was 11.7 million in SoCal. So, and then, of course, worked the $50,000 or deed away houses, that we've had that are like you talked, one of your people that mentioned just completely trashed out, severe repairs. But I spent most of my career though at VRM. I went over there in 2012 and was on the VA and USDA accounts as an asset manager, and then progressed into management in about 2013 or 14. I spent over 10 years there, worked with some amazing mentors that really built up, the type of leader that I try to be today. And then COVID hit, right? So I had to pivot because VRM went from about 7,000 properties to less than 1,000 with 3 managers and 15 asset managers, right? So pivoted away from that and got into single family rentals on the turn side. As a regional manager there. And I like the repairs piece of it. That's the most exciting for me, building a home up either for sale or for lease. That's mixing it up with the contractors and the agents on what we need to get it, the house to look at. So I worked for a small private equity firm in Dallas doing that initially, and then went over to Home Partners America, much larger. They had about 35,000 doors, all for lease, right? And then the Tricon acquisition occurred a year from last December, about 14 months ago. So it more than that now. It's crazy how time flies. But I knew a guy that was the SVP of dispositions at HBA, and he was coming over to Tricon. And I said, listen, man, that's my wheelhouse. I gave him my rundown. For y'all, if you know him, Kevin Rumsey was my EVP on the turn side at HPA, and we worked together at BRM. So I was like, Kevin, put in a good word for me, what's up. And we hit the ground running, man. It's been exciting because all of the asset managers that we hired on are all former REO asset managers from high level players like, Zone, Freddie, Fannie, Nation Star, VRM. I have 2 of my old asset managers for VRM working for me again. So it was initially just stabilize the portfolio. The HPA chose to pretty much not reduce assets after they listed them, and you know how that goes with the market that we had in 2024, right? So we picked up a portfolio of aged assets that was like 60% of the total inventory, which where I come from, you try to keep that below 5%. So
Yes.
it was, the initial 6 months was, establish policies and procedures, work with the original asset management companies, ADR and Peak Harbor, on getting those in place, and then getting properties priced in line with where they need to be, right? So what we found after the first 6 months is we were trying to keep in line with the House of Canary midpoint, right? But we were finding after 90 days that we were actually selling in line with the LA original BPO value. So we switched our complete strategy. I apologize. I've got my cleaning ladies here. I'll get it on mute here in a second. But we were pricing now in line with the agent's value up to about 105%. So depending on the market, right? So give me just 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. No worries at all. And guys, if you guys are as we're waiting for Jeff and stuff there, if you guys have questions or anything from him, we'll get into kind of market data and stuff like this after we finish up this. But feel free to raise your hand, put chats in the box, and I'll make sure that we get to everybody and stuff as well. So you left off, we're starting repricing, right? Because it's a frustration for everybody to take an overpriced listing and then we don't sell it and then it's reassigned and you're like, what the hell? Like, why are you reassigning? You didn't listen to me from the start.
Right. And that's something that I'm like I said, as a partner, I never want to do that unless there's just a blatant violation of, core policies. We try to get to the listing agent's value by 60 days on market if we're not under contract yet, and then stay at or close to your monthly marketing report or updated BPO value as we get further along, to where we can say, okay, you've had 120, 150 days of this. We haven't had any offers. We've been at your value. It's time for us to try something else, right? And I want to say this, it's not a slap, like things happen. You don't get removed from the network. I've pulled property from people in the morning and given them 2 more in the afternoon on new assignments, so it's just how it goes, Our portfolio is all, like you said, rental properties. So we have two portfolios, the HPA, which is the larger of the two, and then the Tricon. We also manage the resident purchase programs for both portfolios. That's exciting and fulfilling because, they do lease to purchase and we finally get them in the home that they want to truly buy and have their own, right? So the cool thing about Tricon and Blackstone too is that they're willing to put money into homes to get them ready for marketing, right? And not just throw everything on the market as is. Now that's easier said than done, of course, with a rental home. Like right now, my challenge is, even though we're doing say $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in repairs, the market feedback is, well, you still look like a rental property, right? And the finishes, the types of, appliances we're putting in, the shades of paint and flooring, right? And so we are also combining that with using our construction teams in certain markets. And I'm literally training them up every day on what scoping needs to look like. I'm honestly working on an enhancement in Bid on Homes, the system that we work out of, to dispatch agents 15 days prior to move out, so I can get my agents in the field with the superintendents day 1 after move out to scope, right? And get the agents direct feedback to those guys so that they can say, okay, the supers think they need to do 100 items, but, Bernadette, or Jared would say, no, you only need to do 15, or vice versa, right? So it's that collaboration. We hope that there's good, strong relationships built from that. It's something exciting for me because it's new, but we tried to design it directly like an REO portfolio. There's no point in reinventing the wheel when we know it works, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, one thing I want you guys to just kind of pick up on, because I've noticed this throughout the field, but, Jeff has rekindled, relationships with people that he's known throughout the business, right? It seems that like the tribe always comes back together, whether it's an agent, asset management, like same thing, right? Like I started at auction.com. Those same folks like Mike Pinto, Matt Sloniker, et cetera, recruited me over to Carrington. And guess what? Matt Sloniker and Mike Pinto went over to Zone. Literally, like we took this same group of producers. But here's the thing, guys, this is where you got to create your name and your brand. Because if you're not recognizable, if you're not shining, right? If you're not adding value to the client, like you're not going to get remembered. Like this is where it's almost like you take the cream of the crop, and on the next company, you come back and make a bigger, stronger team. And it just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger at that point in time by the end of it and stuff there. And yeah, Sam, it's a small industry, especially those of us that have been in it for some time at this
Right.
point.
And like to elaborate, there's some houses in Baltimore that we're trying to sell very recently that we haven't sold in Maryland for a year and a half. So what did I do? I went back to the agents that I used to use at VRM when I managed that state, right? To your
Yeah.
point, the relationships is severely important. Whether I give you one asset or 10, I remember the ones that perform at that level above, right? And
Yeah.
I try to bend over backwards to get to reward that. We try not to use a ton of agents in every specific market, meaning it's a lot of pressure to perform, but we use data, not just personal perception, right? So, and then of course there's always room to add or remove, but
Sure.
it's all about how do you perform in that moment, whether it's one asset or 20.
Yeah. And guys, I want you guys to think about, right? Like, I feel like for probably Jeff and myself, when we go to these conferences, right? Like people are constantly sitting there with their hand out, like, oh, I could help you here. I could help you there. Like, but why? Like, what is setting you apart, right? Figure out how you can add value to other people, right? Like, I just started working with consolidated analytics with my team in Arizona. And literally, we closed up our first deal. It was kind of ugly, right? We didn't even have a clear lien to close once we had it under contract, which again wasn't on us, but it just made it a long process. Kept it all together. And then I was like, hey guys, if you need anything else, and they're like, actually, like we need coverage in the panhandle of Oklahoma. It's like, oh my gosh, like I got you.
Right.
Now it wasn't easy, but I found them an agent in the panhandle of Oklahoma. And they were like, well, do you have anybody in Alaska? I was like, what part? They were like, Ayuk. It is a village with 175 people in it. And it's a 5-hour plane ride from Fairbanks at this point in time. But we were able to piece it together. And now, like, look, I'm not getting compensated. Like, I just found them, like, I was just a connector at this point in time. But now, like, we have a relationship going because I helped them out of a bind, right? And that's where I want you guys thinking, how do you guys add value to your clients, whether it's a bank, an institution, a traditional client? How do you create these raving fans out there in the marketplace? Because it will come back tenfold, especially with where I think the market is going. But we're not here for me. So, Jeff, let's talk about that for a second, right? Like, what are you seeing going on in this market space right now? Right? Before everybody signed on, we were talking about Rick Sharga, who's a friend of ours, and his kind of outlook and stuff. But from your side of seeing things, you're looking at an entirely different marketplace. These rentals, the this, the that. Like, what do you see happening in the market for the past couple of years, and where do you see it going?
I see the market slowing down this year, if not towards the beginning of next. Certain pockets in DFW. I speak a lot about DFW just because I live here, right? But
Yeah,
it's one of our largest markets. But certain pockets of DFW, you are definitely seeing a shift downward in pricing and demand. There's also a higher level of expectation on the condition of the houses. Um, Many buyers are. We did some analytics, and many buyers are throwing offers on multiple properties and then hand choosing which ones they want to accept, which is very difficult for us to manage, right? And time consuming, right? So
yeah,
that's something, a new anomaly that we're seeing with with first time buyers and not institutional purchasers. You see it from time to time with them, but not with the John Doe buyer. So that's interesting to work through. Again, the quality of houses that we are putting on the market and the feedback there is just that we're overpriced due to condition. You know, and that's again frustrating for Blackstone and my superiors to hear it when we dump a ton of money into these houses, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about trying to maximize ROI in 26 and make sure that we're making the right spends in the right areas, or just acknowledging it on the front end and saying cut our losses, get rid of this house. The cap rate is dismal, and the cash on cash return is just terrible. We just need it off the books, right? So we average about a $65 per day holding cost on top of that. So we have to keep all that in mind. And I love telling agents that because it, sometimes explains the why whenever we take more drastic reductions or choose to sell as is and just lower the price dramatically. But Tampa as well is another one of our largest markets. And most of our stuff over there is along the coastline, like St. Petersburg, right? There is a little bit inland, but that's primarily where it's at, up and down there, about 30, 40 miles. That is
Yeah.
the big market. Not that we struggle in, but just that we're trying to find that sweet spot where pricing versus condition and what repairs make sense, right? So last year when we took on the portfolio, HVA was wasting a ton of time dressing roofs on the back end when we got to closing, right? Well, the shift this year is to address the 4-point inspection items on the front end to where we don't have to worry about insurance or lender issues once we get under contract, right? Because most of our homes are not distressed. There are a few that are, but I like to say that they're a level above REO, but not truly retail, right?
Sure.
So, and again,
Yeah, because you guys are putting money into them,
mhm,
right? But if it's somebody that's actually going to live in it, right? Like this is where like he needs better partners to advise, right?
right,
On this. Like, well, why would you put $40,000 in? Because like when you could do 15 and get the same return on investment, because unless you're doing the grades and the quality of what somebody in that area is going to want, like you might paint the house and they might be like, oh, damn, I got to repaint this house. And it's a fresh coat of paint, right?
yeah,
Because you guys are doing it for these masses, right? To make it
right,
rentable and this and that. And that's where they need really great partners on your side that know the market, that have resources that can give these types of opinions. That's where you guys will add massive value to not just Jeff, but other asset managers. But it has to be data driven, guys. It's
yeah.
not like, oh, I don't like this color. Nobody cares what you like, right? Like, what are the numbers telling us at the end of the day on how this is going to move the property one way or another?
Right. I mean, I think the feedback from the agent's preferred contractors as well. I'm honestly trying to board those guys into my network and have a dispo contractor network versus a turn contractor network, because these guys and ladies are so ingrained in the turn scope that it's tough for me to get them out of that mindset and focus on what the agents truly feel is important, and my team,
Yeah.
right? So that is where I'm really big into adding the agents, contractors. I'm not getting any pushback either from vendor management right now too, so it's
I
nice.
can imagine. I can
Yeah,
imagine. Now, let me ask you this: like, with all of that being said, right? Like, the cost of goods and services is astronomical. Like that, you guys have to be taking a beating on that side of things with contracting and services. I would assume just because of labor and like
yeah,
plywood, for crying out loud, since COVID, right, has
yeah.
tripled or quadrupled in price. But what are you
Well,
guys
we
seeing?
have standardized pricing across the board for almost
Okay.
everything we do, except for things like roofs, right? But flooring is standardized, and it's paint, etc. Appliances. I don't. You're probably familiar. Civi is what we use, and we build all of our standardized pricing in through that. So as long as the vendors that we onboard are agreeable with the pricing matrix there, we're golden, right? It's helped a
Okay.
little bit, but yeah, absolutely. There have been increases in prices overall. Our vendor management and compliance team does a great job about putting out a quarterly report on things that you're describing, whether it's socioeconomic, international issues going on affecting shipping, things like that. It all comes into account with the core goods that we're using. So it's really interesting for me. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, when I was at HPA, we were getting paint done for $1.65 a square foot.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, that's where it's like before we board vendors, we have to have that conversation with them and say, you're going to get the volume, but you're not going to make the severe margins like you would on a retail sale, right? So
I would
um,
paint my entire house right now. Like I don't need to paint my house, but I would paint my entire house right now for $1.65 a square foot. That
well,
is amazing.
that was 25. That was 24 and 25. It's higher now, but not dramatically. But like
Okay.
even like we use national flooring vendors like Ready Carpet, ILG, Real
Yeah.
Floors, who get people out there like next day after we issue a work order, they measure, next day we have bids, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of standardization there that goes into play. I think the key there though again is the shades and the types of appliances we're putting in, right? Like I don't want builder grade appliances going in my $700,000 and $800,000 houses in Seattle, and
Sure.
that's where I've got great agents that provide that feedback to my asset managers, and we partner together to get it done. So
Yeah. Do you
I also
foresee
love the
like
feedback. Like if I issue an approval on a bid, I want a vendor to push back on me and say, "Man, what were you thinking? Or you forgot these 10 line items, or we really don't need to do these because of X, Y, and Z." Like I value feedback, right? And
yeah.
every market's different. Like to your point, I need that in order to truly tell what the market demands. So
Yeah. Do you see like with technology, AI, right? Like I see I see my wife working on her properties and staging or cleaning up, right? Decluttering properties. But do you see that becoming a part to like make estimations, bids of like things that need to be done? Like how is technology AI kind of working in with what you guys are doing right now?
that's part of it. That's more on the turn side right now. They're going to build that out
Okay.
efficiently first before we bring it over to dispose. But to your point, the staging, the creative verbiage for marketing descriptions on MLS. We use a company, eFurnished, that works with
Uh-huh.
our agents to
Yeah.
provide staged photos, virtually staged photos, of course, and make sure, like, I've heard of the lawsuits where like windows get moved or, holes in walls get covered up, all that kind of stuff. Like, we want to truly just not, you know, mislead people, but provide the best pictures that we can and marketing descriptions again. There's no charge to the agent. We consume that whole cost. There's also enhancements with the system that we use, Bid on Homes, that they're working on to implement AI. A lot of it's tied towards the BPO, pulling comps and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed feedback from our agents on that. A lot of them like to pull their own, right? But
Right.
others would love the opportunity to reduce the time, right? Because that honestly, after speaking with agents at conferences, that's the most time consuming task that we have by far. So, how can I make
Especially
it?
on certain platforms, right? Like I hear that a lot from Bid on Homes that it's just time consuming. Like
Yeah.
they have the data, they know what it needs, but it's the data entry of this that actually has to be done at that point.
Yeah, I mean, after RELX, that was the main thing that we were walking through with Mark at Bid on Homes was the amount of photos that HPA required or the locations of. It's not that I don't care about, but I just don't need, right? Like
Yeah.
take it off the required list, right? Like trim this down to where we get down to the meat of what we're dealing with, be able to paint a good picture here without exhausting the agents by providing hundreds of photos, right? So,
Man. Well,
uh,
like so one, we appreciate you, right? Like because lots of times I feel like the agents just get put to the side and it's like, no, this is what we want. So like appreciate you taking on that feedback and making adjustments to have a better working relationship as well. And we have a question from Cisco here. He said, and he's actually in the DFW Frisco area as well. But from your side, how does your decision to start liquidating rental assets typically track with the broader economy? And do you see that like a move ahead, alongside, behind, the REO and distressed market?
I think it's alongside, number one. We don't have any insider knowledge that I'm aware of, but it's more of we look at them on an individual asset by asset basis as they come across vacancy, move outs, right, or evictions. So they do an analysis. First off, if it's a HPA home, they just do an overall analysis because those homes are technically larger than what a traditional rental would be. 6, 7, 8,000 square foot houses with indoor pools and stuff like that. So therefore, the turn expense is severely high, right? If we go over $20,000 on an estimate for a turn, it automatically gets put under a review to see if we should dispose it, right? Our leases are, anywhere from 1 to 5 years. So we try to maximize that and not have to turn these every year, right? But sometimes that doesn't happen. If you're spending 20 plus K a year on these houses, it's no longer viable to keep, right? Your cap rates suffer, your cash on cash, your internal rate of return. Those are all metrics that, the asset management team uses to evaluate these houses, right? There's also scenarios where there's HOA restrictions that force us to sell the houses, right? I saw that's more common right now in Atlanta and Tampa, which is our largest markets. I see a little bit in DFW, but not so much. And then, adverse property issues in terms of neighborhoods come into play, right? If there's high crime, consistent break-ins or vandalism while it was occupied, it just doesn't make much sense for us to keep them. We want to put people in houses that they can be proud to live in, right? And in neighborhoods, right? So that's the other thing. HPA also allowed people to do the rent to purchase program as long as they qualified, right? So I have houses, if you can picture DFW, from like west of Burleson all the way over to Terrell, which is approximately 2.5 to 3 hours drive time, right? Our team is centralized over in Irving and Las Colinas, which is the heart of the metro. So we're trying to shrink our web, if you will, to within that, right? And we've got Texan trucks in all major markets. So where we want to be able to service work orders more efficiently. More work orders per day is the biggest thing, right? So it doesn't make much sense for us to have houses that are that spread out.
Yeah, no, I get that. And James, I'll get to you on 1 second, man. But Jeff had mentioned something. There was recently an executive order signed, right, on the amount of homes and things like that. And lots of times, I think, like in politics, like decisions are made and they don't really think about the ramifications of all of the people that are involved with it or anything like that. Has that affected, or do you see it affecting you at all, or is it just kind of lip service at this point in time?
I mean, that's above my pay grade. I think that there's going to be some impact on my side of the industry, but I don't think it's going to kill it.
Okay.
There's different avenues that I've heard of that will still allow us to be very successful at what we do. Also, the total properties that we're trying to sell did not increase hardly at all by that order. So that was nice to see, right? It wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. We did, of course, comply and not purchase anything beyond that day it was issued because we want to stay in good standing with the government, right? And our leaders are in touch with the legislative groups that are putting this together for us. And I've heard so many different scenarios. I don't want to speak to them. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I said it's kind of like Fugazi right now. So it was laid out, but there's no roadmap to it. It's not like there's not a lot of clear instructions. And so that's where I was just curious. My gut feeling was like it didn't really affect the day-to-day right now. Could it? Who knows? But that depends on what all of the details come out and in the end of the day. But
I will
Yeah.
say this. I've heard that the government's very keen on the build for rent developments that our company does and other companies participate, like Invitation, all the big players,
Yeah.
right? That's something that we're still very focused on because, again, it's providing not great housing for people as opposed to apartments. I still think there will be plenty of opportunity for that in the future.
Okay. And James Brown, you have your hand up, my friend. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, Jeff, I've got a burning question. So I come from the rent to own space, had a small company similar to Home Partners. Our program was a little bit different, a little bit more restrictive as far as amount of money up front. But when Home Partners and Divvy both pulled a plug on the rent to own programs, from what I hear, beginning of 2025, and then Tricon took over. I was curious why they pulled the plug and how Tricon has taken over. Like, what's the path forward? But mainly, just like, why did they pull the plug? I'm like, what do I not know that
Yeah.
Home Partners knows?
Um, that's a political question. 'Cause I came from the
Yeah, I
homeowner
was
side,
wondering.
and I think that the thought, I think, on both sides that it could have gone either way, meaning HPA could have absorbed Tricon or vice versa. That's just from what I've heard from the ground, talking with both sides, right? Now, I don't know the exact reason why, but I speculate they didn't decide to put any more homes into the HPA securitizations in 2025 because they knew that Tricon was going to absorb them. So they would just purchase under Tricon, right?
Okay.
Um, we're not trying to liquidate the entire HPA portfolio, to be clear.
Hmm.
My goal is drop in the bucket compared to the total portfolio size. So that's where a lot of internal staff not panic, but say, "Oh my God, we're selling so many houses in Colorado Springs. Why is that?" And it's like, well, we're selling actually, like I said, a drop in the bucket. And when I give them actual figures, it's like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It's like, just because I'm selling 20 houses a month in Colorado Springs or whatever it is, I don't want to use specifics, but you know what I mean? Like, superintendents start freaking out because they're not turning the houses, they're going straight to dispo, right? So that's the message that our executive team has done a really great job about communicating. My goal this year is not any larger than what it was last year either. So I like to think of it, we're trimming the fat, right? The houses that just truly don't make sense for us to keep as rentals anymore.
Yeah, and it's true. You're not acquiring any new ones with the rent to own program, correct?
That's correct. As far, yeah. So that's another thing that I love about Tricon is they care about their employees, right? So with the sudden, to be honest with you, we blew out the dispo pipeline last year. We did too good. So when they said they were going to close the same amount, we had to see a sudden influx of houses come to dispos. So as opposed to making me double my team by hiring outside, they transferred asset managers from acquisitions over to dispositions to assist with that sudden rise, right? As opposed to laying people off. Like that, my spirit, my EVP calls it utility players, right? He wants people that can do a myriad of different roles and be successful at it and be able to pivot. Because you know how it is, James. In a month, the government could issue something and we gives us the approval to turn the acquisition spigot back on, or tomorrow, or whatever, right? Like, and Tricon's going to be prepared to do that. So that makes me a little nervous, though, because I've got all this inventory I'm trying to get on the market. If they pull half my team, what do we do?
Yeah,
But
Uh,
it's a challenge I look forward to.
yeah. Well,
all
Jeff,
right.
would it make sense for us to talk a little bit more based on my background? Maybe I can work with you guys.
Of course.
Okay, I'll get your info from
Yeah,
Larry.
Larry, feel free to issue out my email to your group. I'll be happy to talk to anyone. Just for
Uh,
people's reference, I like to call it a smiley face. Coast to coast is where our territory is primarily. We have a little bit in Chicago and Minnesota, not a whole lot beyond that, though, in the Midwest, Tennessee. We stop at Philly and Pittsburgh on the East Coast, and we go as far north as Seattle and Vancouver, a little bit in Portland, but that's Seattle actually is one of our bigger markets for this year.
So here's a question for you, and I appreciate all of this insight and guys, great questions and stuff on here that I don't think most real estate agents talk about, but it's really important as it moves the needle with our entire economy and stuff here. But Jeff, where do you see like the biggest opportunity for agents, right? Like if you have your friend or a son or a daughter or something like that's in real estate, where are you like, guys, this is where you need to position, right? You had some mentors that told you, like, Jeff, this is where you need to be for where the market is going. What would your advice to everybody else be? Like, if you were mentoring them at this point in time, where do they need to be looking at right now?
I would say educate yourself on short sales as well beyond REO. That's all I hear at conferences is that the short sale market is just skyrocketing. And there's a lot of trading seminars at, 5 Star and REOX and all the others about the short sale volume and what an agent needs to do, right? I've also heard from industry leaders that you and I both know on the agent side about mentoring with agents that have direct experience, even if you're not getting paid, right? Like, what does Larry do on a day-to-day basis as an REO broker to be successful? How does he walk houses? How does he write up his BPOs? How does he negotiate offers? Coordinate repairs, right? Like, I don't want to say it's like shadowing, Larry, right? Now,
Yeah.
how do you get your foot in the door, right? You got to know someone, right? And I know agents in Dallas that used to work at VRM that are getting their foot in the door. They're going to the conferences. They're meeting the people like you, me, and all the other agents, right? And I'm giving them opportunity. They may have not worked for me, but I know people that did work with them as an agent or an asset manager. Give them experience, right? They're not going to learn if you don't try them out. So I'm very flexible with new agents. I don't just give them a one and done opportunity. But I do tell them from the get-go is like, I'm under a lot of pressure to perform at a high level. I need you to have that same sense of urgency, right? And we'll train you up from there, like whether it's systems or processes, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
when we go, So, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
trying to sell houses in 125 days from when I get them all the way through to closing. So
Yeah.
that
And for a lot of you guys, I know a lot of you guys are already in my REO referral database and stuff, but this is why I asked you guys for referrals, like who would be a referral or a testimonial for you on the asset management side. And that's why I put that in your file, because lots of times, like if Jeff's like, man, I need somebody in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to talk to Marcus over here. He came referred from Tanya. He's like, oh my God, I worked with Tanya at LPS or this or that. Like, this is where those old relationships, even though you might not have a relationship, like your name and your brand in the system and stuff really, really comes into play and really tends to help out. And the other thing that I picked up on from Jeff, if you guys haven't, I know Jeff has spoken with Bob Norell at a couple of different conferences. Bob's had him on panels. And here's the thing, Bob is so particular, right? Because he's ran so many different companies. Like, he teaches you like this exact process that is going to make you, this isn't a plug for Bob. I have no ownership in asset optimization, but I see what he teaches people in his class. And I see how that is elevated. Just because you've been in REOs for a long time doesn't make you great. I've looked at some BPOs from people that have been in the market for 20, 25 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you've been turning this shit in for 25 years. Like, you've made it this long. Like, I'm shocked at this point in time. Right. So like, this is where, again, like being at these conferences, like investing in yourself at this point in time to really level up your skill. Because here's the thing, guys, I think that we're on the ground floor. I don't know what's coming next, but short sales is a precursor to REO. Like as short sales start to increase, there's going to be a number of short sales that don't get worked out, right? And that they end up in foreclosure. So you're seeing all of these leading indicators at this point: consumer debt, auto default loans, the bond yield curve inverting, which has predicted a recession every time for the last 70 years, right? Like, I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know what that's going to shake out to be, but these are all things that you guys need to be staying ahead of at this point in time. Let's
I
see.
agree 110%. Like Bob's course, and I don't get paid by Bob either, but when I sat through,
Maybe we should go to Bob and tell him that we need to be paid, huh? No, not
well,
really.
I chose to stay for the whole day, right? And just immerse myself in what are the agents hearing? I was severely impressed. Tara Duggar with VRM also gives an amazing BPO course, right?
Yeah.
Like take those courses, educate yourself, explain, your vendor network on that front too.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob is like, look, but he's going to hold you accountable too. Like, Bob is like one of those tough love dads. Like, he's going to love you really hard, but damn it, he's going to let you know when you don't do something that he taught you. He will be the first to tell you. And similar to Jeff, he's not just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, he's going to make it a teachable moment, but it's going to be an intense teachable moment at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, he came from my side, right? So
Mhm.
he doesn't sugarcoat it. He delivers a direct message though about what people like myself look for. Just like I said, no sugarcoating, straight to the point. Like, and I don't mean to be that way. Like I said, I partner with my agents, but my executive team, Blackstone, they have specific goals, and those must be met, right? So what do we do to get to that, right? I'm throwing some of my metrics in the chat here, like 60 days, on market to close or to get under contract. Like that's
Yeah.
tough, the 125, from assignment to close of escrow, like that's tough. Now the good thing is I don't have to deal with evictions or redemptions, thank goodness, right? But
Yeah.
that's the one caveat that's different from me and REO. But
And this is where, like, knowing your client as well, right? If your goal is 60 days, right? Like, price it accordingly, right? Like, know what your client is looking for at this point in time and provide the data, not just on your initials, but on your weeklies, on your monthlies, etc. If we missed the mark and overpriced to begin with, come back and say, look, like my initial pricing strategy was to get this under contract within 60 days, which because of supply and demand and this and that, like give them something to go to bat with because they might not have disapproved you, but it could have been coming from like it could have been somebody otherwise that was like, nope, we're not changing the pricing strategy. Give them something to go to bat with. Give them the data and things to stand and work on your behalf if you're that confident in it at this point in time. Don't bend over and be like, oh, okay, we'll just list it at this, or like give them some feedback at this point in a respectful manner, right? Don't be a jerk either with that. So guys, we have roughly about 10 minutes left or so here. Jeff, super grateful for your time. Like this has been great, super interactive. Are there any other pressing questions, comments, concerns that we need to get while we have Jeff on the call?
Just to be clear, I don't really have a crystal ball of what happened with 25 and 24 with HPA stop purchasing and why it went to Tricon. It's just, you know what I mean. It was a traumatic experience. I'm grateful I got picked up by Tricon. It's been a great sense. But that's the only thing I'd like to clarify. It was a whirlwind of a year, But
you didn't have a big master plan to put all of this stuff together here, Jeff? Is that what you're telling me?
No. I mean, yeah, no, didn't go down that way. But I will say this, that all parties involved treated everybody really fairly. So
yeah.
I'm trying to immerse myself more this year in the conferences, trying to get back into that. I did 5-star last year. That was the only one I was able to go to just because of the chaos of everything going on. love to meet anybody on this call or anybody that needs advice or any kind of questions. Drop my name in the chat or my email in the chat. Feel free to shoot me an email anytime.
Yeah, I put Jeff's email in there if you want to reach out. I know that our housing hustler over there in Vegas and Arizona has a list of contractors. I had saw that comment and stuff like that. And again, like this is where we add value, right? Like secondary opinions, contracting bids, even on properties that you don't have. Like those types of situations will help you guys stand out because these, whether it's Tricon or American Destiny or PEMCO or VRM or anybody else, they may not need to add people into their network until they do. That's where you want to be at the top of the list. Like timing is everything, and they may not need you right now. And that's not disrespectful. That's not that they don't want to work with you. It's that they have a system that's flowing and working really well right now and hitting their numbers. And you also don't want to disrupt the apple cart at the same time when you're achieving your goals. But as the market fluctuates, this is where we always need better resources, better agents, better networks, better vendors, better relationships at that point in time. So, man. So Jeff's email address is in there. If you guys want the replay a little bit later today, this will be up on YouTube. Kathy just posted the link and stuff for it if you guys want to go back and catch anything on there if you missed it and stuff like that. And Jeff, man, I really appreciate your time and stuff. I'll be up in Dallas in a couple of weeks for a different event. If you're in town, I would love to grab lunch or coffee or something like that. But if you need anything, I mean, I have about 3,000 agents in the database and stuff like that. I'm not going to send you up to like Sam, who screws up his BPOs all the time. Sam knows he's one of my favorites up there in Detroit and one of my go-tos and stuff like that. But if you need anything, like all of these people are rock stars. We've been doing obviously in this space for a little while. Let me know what you need. And guys, I appreciate all of your time and showing up here today. And you guys have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.